Welcome to Mystic and the Nerd. Jess and I are back, and this time I'm the one with the question. So looking forward to jumping in. But before we get there, how you doing, Jess?
I am doing good. We've got a great question that you came up with, so of course I'm doing good.
What's Jesus up to in the heart of Jessie DeCorsey?
Hmm. Well, I shared this weekend. I think finding the balance of uh, the beautiful and the brutal parts of life that, especially as a mom and busyness of end of school year things, trying to find those pockets of peace in the chaos and the storms. So Jesus has just taken me on a journey of what that looks like every day. How about
Sounds good.
you?
Lots going on in the world of Matt, and but always loving these sorts of curious type moments to hang out with you and just to pick your brain around some of the things that I'm thinking. And literally, this question is something that came last Sunday morning when I'm sitting in one of the Greater Things gatherings, and Bill is giving a word and sharing, and the idea for me started flowing and growing around the idea of purpose and presence, and like how many people ask the question, "What is my purpose in life?"
Mhm.
And it's an important question to ask. It's not something we should just go, no, it's not worth any brain space to rent out. Let's just think of other better things. Most humans that I come across want their life to matter. They want to add something to the world that's around them. They want something to be added to their world. So purpose is a big deal. But the question came is when purpose outweighs presence. And when I talk about presence, it's the idea that we've wondered, God, what is my purpose? But have we lingered longer in his presence?
Mm.
Now, that might sound a little too mystical for some people and not mystical enough for others. But for me, it's this place of I want to get curious, more curious around the presence of God because I have found that the more I hang out with him, the more I discover of my life, of purpose, of the reason that I have been created, but it starts from a place of relationship with Him. And so this question is not about denying the purpose that we have, but it's asking how important is the presence of God in our lives? Does this thing that we call the presence of God, that we hear about it, churches preach about it, pastors rave on about it, the Bible talks about it, and talks in the Old Testament and New Testament about the presence of God. But sometimes, just I find the world that we live in, and I've valued finding my purpose over this concept of this place of presence with God. So I thought we'd get the ball rolling and just going, what is the presence of God like? And I know, Jess, you've been taking some time to dig through the scripture to work that out, and I'd love to hear through your lens what you've found, what you've discovered, and what you believe. Like the whole idea of what does this mean to Jess is a big question as well.
Mm. Well, I think it was interesting when you started asking me about the idea of the presence because you went with the Old Testament. Why did you start there?
I think the Old Testament has such extraordinary spiritual experiences of God's presence.
Yeah.
And so, for the mystics amongst us to stand on top of Mount Sinai and the presence of the Lord descends, and Moses' face changes so it glows, the people can't even look at him. They ask him to put a sack on his head. Like, that's an extraordinary experience of the presence of God. And you've got it in the temple when Solomon opens it, and the glory of the Lord fills the temple. And so, we have these moments, and the New Testament holds it, absolutely does. Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration with Peter, James, and John when he gets baptized. But the Old Testament seems to have these Old Testament kind of images and visions of the presence of God in extraordinary ways. So the first question I asked you is, can you unpack the Old Testament version of presence for me?
Yeah. I love that. I think you're exactly right. That's essentially what I was digging into today, just all the different rich encounters that people had with God's presence. And not, I mean, think of the New Testament as fully and completely engaged with the presence of Jesus throughout. So that's a lot of presence and encounter as well. But I love the definition of presence in some of the different, there's a few different words in the Hebrew language around presence, and one means face, or it just really has this close proximity. to it that's really face-to-face presence. One is has to do with the eye, just a lot more of that presence through eye to eye or face to face. And another one is before. So all of these different words are kind of attached to this concept or sometimes used as presence, but usually through these theophanies or these encounters where people are present face to face in a tangible, direct way with God. So Eden, the burning bush, Mount Sinai, clouds, fire, like you said, there's the tabernacle, the Ark of Covenant. There's just so many different ways that we get to experience the presence of God through scripture. But one interesting concept today was just the relational one that's done through covenant. Like in Exodus, he says, my presence will go with you. I will give you rest. So it's attached to a covenantal promise of his presence. And in Joshua, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. So again, just this promise of this continual presence of God with us and seek my face, as he says in Psalm 27, or David tells us that he said. Then there's also the concept of just that omnipresence. Like God is just, we don't actually see that word in the Hebrew, but it's that concept that there's nowhere we can go that God isn't present with us.
Mm.
So just rich ideas of presence today. And I didn't even throw in one of my favorite ideas is the bread of presence. That was the first thing I said to you when you asked in the Old Testament. I don't know why I'm so intrigued by that. Actually, I do know why, but it's just the language and connection to bread, the bread of life. I am the bread of life, and Bethlehem meaning house of bread, and just all these great connections with the word of bread and bread of presence. I just think that's a great thread to the New Testament. But anyway, back to you.
I love it. And even the idea of dropping the word of covenantal in it, it just shows it's part of our design. God's presence is a part of our design. It's the way He planned it, it's the way He made it. He decides that He creates and He says it's good. It's coming, it's us coming into covenant relationship with Him. So presence for me is part of our design feature. And I love that. Absolutely love it. How does Jesse experience presence? 21st century, four kids, oldest one's just learning how to drive. All the different types of experiences are going on inside of that house and that side of that mind and heart of yours. How does Jessie DeCorsey experience the presence of God that you're talking about here?
Hmm. I, there's so many different ways, right? But my favorite way is to really block out time to do that. That's where I'm just really intentional because I just when my feet hit the floor, I'm just going, going, going. So I really have to carve out time to be present because I'm always living in the next thing that has to be done. And with children and the teenage years that I'm in right now, there's just a lot of life happening. So I love to sit and just invite Jesus to come and be with me. And sometimes I'm just having a cup of coffee and I just imagine proximity. Like, God, you're with me. I know Emmanuel, I know you're with me. So what's on your heart today? And I just sit and kind of scoot into that and see what's on the table. And it's always something that's blessing me, edifying me in some way to enrich, give me strength for anything that's coming or deal with some of the things that I'm not letting go of. Or, it's always something essential for me. So that's just a routine that I love to do, but I love to go experience him in creation and in other
Mm.
people. Like I just really experience him in relationship with others and just, yeah, proximity to nature and creation. I can see him in everything.
So with that in mind, just the idea of purpose, does that flow from those times or before those times? Like, is that even a conversation in your head when you're hanging out with Jesus about what's your purpose?
I think for years and years and years, it's the source of my anxiety. So it's always the source of the or the probably a place that we come to the most is around my purpose. What am I supposed to be doing, God? What do you want me to do? And I made a note while you were talking because I think we tend to put so much value on our purpose over presence because for me it was the fear of maybe getting that wrong. If things aren't really coming to life or this thing that I was doing isn't really working out, then maybe I made the wrong decision. And I think that's probably the thing I work with people the most or hear the most is their fear of failure, fear of getting it wrong and getting stuck in their calling or what am I supposed to be doing? What is God saying to me? I don't hear him. I don't see it. I thought he said this, that didn't work. So I must have gotten it wrong. So there's a lot of self-doubt. And I think when it's when there's a fear narrative there, that's where the value of it gets placed and prioritized before just presence, being present.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. Like even as you're talking, and I guess, and this has been true to my own story as much as it is to other people's testimonies that they've shared with me, is that often people think when they're doing God's purpose, that peace flows from that. So when I'm not feeling peace, is something gone wrong? Like,
Hmm.
and I think if you're doing the things that God has designed you to do, there's going to be all kinds of challenges that come up in front of you. And if you evaluate that on, am I at peace within myself because I'm doing all awesome things? And then I think we might lose the moments of when we're walking through challenging things as well. And that's where, for me, the idea of presence, of God's, like you say, Emmanuel, God with me, becomes a bigger deal for me. So that even through the very difficult parts of life, I can find Him rather than having to do things to find Him. I can be with Him to discover Him.
Hmm. Well, so there were a couple points that I was looking into of maybe why we place that value system. And one of them is that coming back to that good works concept, because there are enough places in the Bible that talk about our works and that these things are good. Like Ephesians 2:10, I was sharing with you earlier, talks about the way that we come to Christ so that we can do the good works that He's planned for us long
Mm,
ago. So we can start going, oh, okay, so I can get that peace of the Lord if I'm really in His presence and if I'm really um, walking in the way of Jesus and collaborating in the kingdom, then I should have peace on this. Things should
mm,
work out. And we start making that kind of that emphasis. And then we think we need to earn that favor or that blessing, and if it's not working out, we're not doing enough, so we'll take on more. But I think that's so true in my own life because so often the things God has called me to are there's so much chaos in it, and it's
mm,
actually the most terrifying things that I feel so ill prepared for, or I'm so completely challenged by. And because God's fine-tuning things or maybe healing things or doing all kinds of
mm,
different things in those moments, that I think it gets tricky there because then we get confused at why it has to be so hard if we're really following Him. I don't
mm.
know. What do you think? I think that's kind of a paradox, but what do you think?
It is. And again, I guess I can only speak personally for myself of how I've navigated some of those things. I think the older I've gotten, the more that I've valued the presence of God. Um, and I think the older I've gotten, the idea of breaking away from I have to do things to find the presence of God
Hmm.
is a real thing in my mind. It's in His presence, like it's that place where like you say, you're intentional around those things. I find that when I'm out in creation, I find that when I'm playing my guitar, I find that when I'm writing, there's these moments where it feels like everything slows down around. It doesn't mean that God's presence is not there in other times, but it's me being intentional.
Hmm.
And it's the idea around any friendship in my life I want to be intentional with. Like if I value it, I will value it by my time. And um, that's something that I equate with presence. Maybe not everyone does, but I do by giving time. And so for me, in that when God gives me time to sit, to be, to engage, the revelation that comes from that helps me with purpose.
Hmm.
And which is why the great revelation of my life is the purpose is to love people as I have been loved. I don't ever want to escape from that. I don't ever want to make that more complicated than that. But it took me years to get to that. It took me years of working really hard, of helping people, of diving in and sacrificing family time, sacrificing all the things I should not have been sacrificing, thinking I was doing a great thing and all of that sort of stuff. But what I have found, it's the slowing down of my world to discover the love of God.
Hmm.
And in that, then I can exist. Then I can breathe. Then I can act. Then I can be. But it was a long time coming, Jess, to discover. And so when I asked the question around presence and purpose, for me internally is like, do I value purpose more than presence? So it was a question for me as well. How do
Hmm.
you feel about that?
I am sure many would resonate with this question. I think it's so essential to who we are to have some kind of hope for a future, some kind of plan, some kind of purpose. It's just that we can remember how we had that conversation about measuring success, and you have to define for yourself what success is before the world defines it for you,
Mm.
because we can get lost when we can't measure success in our lives. And it's really, really hard to measure love and presence, especially when everything else isn't working out in your life that really matters and things aren't coming together like you'd hoped. Um, oh, I had one thought bubble. I'm just going to throw over to you. How about you? You keep going and it'll come back to me. Keep talking.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear, Jess, as well, like even from you, like when you sit in that place of presence, what does purpose even sound like to you? Like, and that's, I think that's what I've needed to frame up because, like you say, before purpose was around success, as in big church, lots of people coming, baptisms, healings, all of that stuff, and all of that stuff is good. I guess it's all fun to be a part of, but is that purpose? And for me, there was a lot of striving in that. There was a lot of people pleasing in that. And so purpose got lost in the output of success of ministry. And so when purpose got lost, my identity got lost. So
Mhm.
who is Matt became a very confusing question for me, let alone for anyone else who was doing relationship with me at the time. And so yeah, so it's for me just this is just that intriguing place to sit in, to like it's not black and white. There's a whole space in here for us to exist in of what is life, what does this look like inside of it. But I kind of want to land in the place where presence is the thing that I prioritize, and that purpose flows from presence.
Mm. That's what my thought was that I had slipped. Thank you for reminding me because it came back to Eden's blueprint. I don't think, unless you talk about it and you become aware of it and you ask yourself the question, what am I prioritizing and what do I believe about purpose and identity? I guess it's really a question of identity, isn't it?
Mhm.
Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? There's like who I am will define kind of what I'm doing, I suppose. And it's so often wrapped up in our works. But in the Eden's Blueprint course, I remember you said something to the effect of what you just said when you talked about how your purpose will flow from that place of presence with him. And I hadn't heard anyone coin it that way. And I finally realized, oh, I've been trying to do it the opposite way. I've been trying to fulfill my his plans and his purpose for me and those good works. I'm trying to, if I'm gifted in this, I should be doing this. And if you've been trusted with a lot, then there's going to be a lot asked of you. And I better measure up to these things or God is, going to be so displeased with me. So it's just this continual transactional place of needing to earn that place with that seat with him. And when you exposed that lie, or I suppose talked about actually how it flows from that place of presence, it just happens. I had to ask myself, is that true?
Mm.
Do those plans and purposes that I'm trying to chase down just flow from presence with him? So that's the place that I've been sitting in. And it's just taken off that striver. It's taken
Mm.
away that thing of needing to know the next step. It doesn't make it less comfortable for me, if I'm honest. I'm still so dependent on him every single day to say, is what am I doing today? What is this still the
Mm.
plan? I feel like it should look like this. And he's like, nope, it's this. And really, that's what we're doing today or this week or this month or this season. It never looks like how I would probably make that blueprint, but you know, there's something in that journey that it's chaotic, but there's much more peace in it because it's taken me out of the God seat of my own life.
Yeah, yeah, and I love the honesty that you hold in that space, Jess. It's one of the things I think that really endears Trish and I to you, is the honesty to hold those places in truth and just go, this is what it actually feels like. And I wonder how many Christians can authentically and honestly just go, it didn't turn out the way that I
Right.
hoped or planned. And my wondering, Jess, is like I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Like that's exactly my experience. But it's come from a place where I've learned how to strive. So I'm relearning that place of presence, or I'm learning for the first time that place of presence. So lots of the things I'm talking about are work in progress moments that are bringing me into a greater awareness of what has God put me on this world to do. And that's where, for me, he, he revolves around relationship, connection. He revolves around love. Like if I make it more complicated than that, then I'm losing the idea of presence. So, regardless of what I'm doing, teaching, so at the moment I'm running a dream interpretation course, and one of the phrases is if we make this more complicated than a child can understand, we've actually lost the audience. Like we've lost the concept because humans love to make things complicated so we can have knowledge that we can use to teach and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know, it's a process of simplification for me, but that allows me to be way more present with myself,
Mm-hmm.
way more present with him, which then allows me to be way more present with you or with anybody else who sits in front of me. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about how we determine presence. So we've talked about like what is purpose, but I think that presence can be kind of tricky too, because not all of us can carve out time to journal and be fully present and imagine Jesus having coffee. And I think we can kind of slide down to that path of feeling like we're not even experiencing his presence enough to know the plans of like, you know what I'm saying? Like some people,
Mm.
myself in different seasons, it's like that idea of presence can be tricky if we don't feel something. Like I don't feel God with me, or I don't feel like I'm getting an answer. I don't feel like I even have that ability to be present with him or for a variety of reasons. And I think that thing that he's had to show me continually is that he's still there, even if I don't
Mm.
feel him. So often I'll like as of late be painting and I want it to be really hyper spiritual, like that I'm worshiping the whole time and I just feel so connected to him, but I'm transferring a lot of information. It's very, almost a mathematical approach to painting that I'm so hyper focused on what's in front of me. I can't think of anything other than how frustrated I am at how
Mm.
this isn't turning out a certain way, But he'll often use images of moments like that going, did you feel, were you aware of me? Did you feel my presence?
Mm.
I was still there. And sometimes I think he has to remind me that there's still some striving and feeling like I need to live in some continual, spiritual realm where I can see him all the time. Um, but the assurance that he's still there and I can let that go
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I think that's a rich conversation for presence to revolve around too, because like friendship, you're not always feeling. Like
Right.
the knowing that someone loves you is a big deal, regardless. And so the idea, does God love me, is such an existential question for some people that they can't bring it down to the place of presence because it's so big.
Right.
I'll start with the idea of your best friend. Do they love you? Yeah. Are they willing to share truth with you? Yeah. Can you endure? Can you work through the challenges of relationship and friendship? So there's lots of feelings in there, but the trust component is I'm actually trusting something I can't see. And so in the trusting of it, that's the where the build and the growth comes. And this, for me, it's the same deal with God, Jess. Like
Mhm.
years ago, my mentor at one point, because I was saying I'm too busy, and he looks me in the eye, he says, Matt, if you're too busy, then you're too busy.
Mhm.
And I never forgot that phrase. It was like, oof,
Mm.
oofta, as you guys in Minnesota would
Oofta.
say.
Good usage. Yes.
And it was just that moment, though, to go, okay. And like at that time, I had 1,000 things on the boil and thinking that I've let somebody down by doing something or other. And it's just like, if you're too busy, you are too busy. And the busyness was me trying to build rather than me trusting.
Mhm.
And so the idea for me in presence is to learn to trust the one who has said, I love you. Now, that happens for God, for Trish, for
Mhm.
my family, for my friends like you and Trev, to trust. Like, this is such a rich and beautiful realm to be in of believing and trusting in something you cannot see, but allowing it to bring you the things of the kingdom and the things of relationship, purpose as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like purpose for me, like sitting with your family and writing songs with Winnie,
Hmm.
that's purpose for me. Um, like sitting with Charlotte and listening to the heart of this extraordinary young lady growing, that's purpose for me. Being out in the yard with Henry and Arthur and teaching Arthur how to bowl a cricket ball and him just doing it first time, like that's fun. But there's purpose in that for me, like
Yeah.
because it's building relationship and connection, learning trust. I'm able to affirm, and like Henry's got a gun on his arm when he throws. It's just like I want to affirm that. I want to be in that space where I can, and so
Mhm.
that's the idea of purpose for me. But it starts from presence. I
Yeah.
need to sit and understand Winnie or Charlotte or Arthur, Henry, to be able to be in that place to do that thing.
Hmm. I love that. And if I can get mystical, leave the nerd for a minute, that idea of presence and purpose, I think early in my faith walk when I was really seeking the Lord and how this faith thing looks and how it works. I just wanted to please him through my works. That's it. I have nothing else to give you. I didn't know my presence mattered to him, that I thought it was measurable, right?
Mm.
Like we've been talking about. And what can I do for you, Lord, to show you how much I love you? And I just remember feeling like the response was just simply to go love other people. I was like, no, no, I was thinking of like a call or like a path or some kind of thing I can perform or do for you or build for you or give my all into. And he's like, yeah, relationship, go love your kids, go love your husband. I was like, wow, it just really changed everything from that moment to see how much value was on the purpose of why we're here and what it looks like to love him, to be present with him and to be present with each other. And I think we talked a little bit about Deb Hoppy's question,
Mm.
Matthew today. And there was this part in Matthew 10 at the end I didn't talk about, but he just brings home this idea of when others receive you, they receive me. And when they receive me, they receive the Father. And just really highlighting what that looks like. And it just reminded me, I guess, in what we're saying today of, what we do to others, we are doing unto him. And what better
Mm.
purpose can we do than to go out and love each other?
Mm. Yeah, it's not complicated.
No. It's not. But we've made it very complicated.
We have, and that's where the moments of sitting with Winnie and writing songs uncomplicates so many things. And yeah, it's just that idea of learning to play again, learning to be creative, learning to enjoy life, learning to rest. Design features that God had gave to Adam and Eve that somehow or other we have decided we prioritize all those after working really hard for God. Um, and just for someone who's been working really hard for God for most of his adult life or for all of his adult life, just feel like there's some wisdom inside of that to go, let's have some fun. Let's
Mm.
play. Let's love. And let's just see what happens when we love others as Christ has loved us.
Amen.
Is that
Drop
good?
that mic. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Now, this is Mystic and the Nerd for the day. Jess, as always, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to sit and to listen to the wisdom that flows out of you. The truth, the honesty, and the revelation is just always generous and always love doing it. So thank you.
Ditto.
For everybody else, we'll be back sometime soon. So fire your questions in. We want to answer them.